was left out, and as per that even the assignment 3.2 was given. So see that within the due date you people try to submit it. Okay, in the next module some students were suggesting the questions are little bit more, so in the next module I'll kindly try to reduce it because the syllabus is more. I have to cover major part of it, so it needs few questions more added on. So let me see if I can reduce anything in the next module as per your suggestions. But you have to go through the ebooks at least until and unless the college gets open along with that of the presentation part. Okay, so be in touch with ebooks. If you get right to download, some books are available. If you're not able to get the links, I can share the links as well at the later stages in the Google Classroom. But keep yourself prepared. Once the college gets starts on, all the internals will be coming one after the other. So see that you are up to date with respect to all the subjects, completed assignments and reading part of yours. Only the practical part will be left out, what we have to take care later. Even that we are thinking about to do if anything possible in virtual lab, but we have to see how well it happens. So that is the second thought. So let us cover with the theoretical aspect of our subject first. So welcome back everyone to the today's class. So we will be starting up with the fourth module. So fourth module deals with the subject related to measurement system and basic concepts related in measuring methods. Okay, so now until now you have dealt with the metrology part. How do you deal with, how do you measure linear measurements, angular measurements, and how do you design a shaft, a gauge design also, right? And also some means of measurements to measure some of the devices as well using the comparators. And also we studied about the screw thread and the gear measurement terminologies. How do you measure all those stuffs? So now basically since the subject is related to mechanical measurements and metrology, we have to focus on some measuring methods as well. So the fourth module basically consists of 3 sections. So this is the fourth module as per your 18 scheme. It consists of 3 parts. One part is related to measurement system and basic concepts of the measuring methods. So the second part deals with the transducers. So these are the devices which are used to measure some output signals. So we'll be going with respect to this one by one later in the classes. And third part is intermediate modifying and terminating devices. So this is the entire part which is related to your module 4. So currently we'll be focusing on measurement system and basic concepts related to these measurement methods. All of you are aware about what you mean by measurement and metrology, which was dealt in the very first class even while fine-tuning our syllabus. So it is nothing but the comparison between a standard and an unknown component of any magnitude what it is. For everything we need an standard with which we have to measure to get the unknown value, right? The simple thing is you can take an example of a scale and a small piece of thread which has to be measured. So if you want to measure the length of that thread, you should have some standard. So here we are using scale as a standard to know the unknown dimension of that particular thread. The same thing, so no need of much explanation over here. So what are the basic requirements of measuring system? So basically there are 2 main requirements. Why do we need the measuring part? So one thing is it helps in getting a comparison between the known and the unknown so that you get an accurately defined and commonly accepted uniform measurement technique throughout the world. It is not like you measure some standard in one of the country and other standard in the other countries. It should be an uniform standard system what we follow. So wherever you measure, you will get a standard value for that particular component what you are measuring. So that is one of the requirement. The second thing is the procedure employed for measurement and the apparatus used for the comparison must be provable. So anything what you use to prove should, anything what you use to measure should be provable. many in mathematics also you have learned about various theorems and you prove those theorems. That shows that proving the theorem is a confirmation to the theoretical thing what you are saying. Similarly, this measurement standard systems what we use will prove that we are following a standard measuring instrument to know the unknown values. So these are the two requirements. Why do we measure exactly? Everyone please write your name and USN, and in between the screenshot of the student list will be taken. Both the names in the chat room and in the screenshot should map for your attendance. So after knowing, you have in your syllabus related to, you have to explain the significance, the requirements and definition of measurement. So we have to focus on the significance of measurement as well. Okay, so what is the significance of the measuring instruments we do use? So mainly you can tell we require the measuring quantities for all type of performance and the activities on day-to-day basis as well, because this is a fundamental requirement for any process. So anything you do, you have to measure how much it is, what you are achieving, what is the value you are getting in any units. It has to be measured. Without measurement you cannot find out what is the exact result for the activity what you are doing. So every process what you do with respect to the input what you take should provide an output facility for the process what you are doing. So the output what you get should be an measurable unit, right? So this is the significance of the measurement what you have to understand. And this measurement also plays a vital role in all the research activities what do we do, irrespective of any stream of engineering or basic science or humanities, whatever it is. Measurement plays a vital role in all the activities. Even in your examination, how much input you give in studies, based on that you get your output. So in between your input and output, you have a protocol called as process. So where you solve the problems, where you read, where you discuss with your friends, do group discussions. So all these are the process activities. With respect to the input data, what you have in it and how you put your effort, which helps in providing you the output result in the form of examination results what you get. So this is one of the examples. Similarly, all are of important in requirement when it comes to the term measurements. Okay, so these are the normal things, you can go through it. So they are, if they ask you the significance of the measurements, you can tell one by one. So after this, you should know what do you mean by generalized measurement system. So generalized measurement system consists of three segregations and three elemental units. So it can be considered as a system that is used to measure the required quantity or the parameter. Okay, so how it will be done? So it will be having three sectors. So one is called as the primary sensing element, and second is called as a variable conversion element, and third is called as the data processing and the data representation element. So this primary sensing element will be basically done by the transducer devices. We have a section called as transducers where we'll be studying the different types of transducers. So what is the function of a transducer? It helps to convert one form of energy into an other form. Depending upon what input signal you're getting, you will provide the output signal. So transformation of energy from one form into the other. Okay. So we'll be studying in that in depth. So here you'll be having a detector transducer stage where you'll be using different types of transducers. So what happens is mainly it sends the element which has been given into it as an input signal. Okay, so it could be a mechanical, electrical, optical, your electronic signal, whatever is being taken as an input. So it will sense. So this is the primary work of a generalized measurement system. And then what it happens is it transfers the signal from input to output. Okay, if it is sensing and mechanical stress and it is generating it into an electrical power, then it will provide you the voltage signal. So whatever which type of transducer you are using, either mechanical transducer, electrical, electronic, a piezoelectric transducer, whatever it is, Based on the given input, it will provide us the output in the form of signal. Okay, it could be from digital to an analog or from analog to the digital, depending upon which type of conversion we are using. So the second stage is nothing but our variable conversion element. So this is an important section where the intermediate modifying element plays an vital role. Okay, so the signal here received will be transmitted through this intermediate modifying stage. So where you will help in obtaining the required power source, the external source which is in needed. So this is nothing but our auxiliary power source which helps in converting into an useful output. Okay, so that will be then transferred to the required data processing. I'm sorry, it got I'm just taking the screenshot of the attendance. Just a second. Okay, so after receiving the input signal from the transducer element, it will be then converted into the power source with the intermediate modifying stage, and the power source which is being received will be transferred to data processing and data presentation element. So this is the terminating stage. So it will be having different sectors. It could be an indicator where the power source will be transferred, a recorder or an controller, depending upon which application you are using. So it is a generalized measuring system which will be used depending upon which type of application you are focusing. So it could be diverted from the transducer stage to the intermediate modifying stage to that of an indicator directly, or else it could be from a transducer stage to intermediate modifying stage to an recorder, or it could be from the transducer stage to intermediate modifying stage to an controller unit. Based on the requirement, it will be bifurcated. So this is a generalized skeletal diagram for an measurement system, because you use a measurement system not only for mechanical oriented, even for electrical, electronics, whatever is our requirement. So based on that, this protocol you have to explain how the generalized measurement system will be. Okay, the same thing. It is the three stages. One is the transducer stage, which sends the input signal. The second one is the signal conditioning stage, where the input signal will be processed to get the output signal. And the last one is the terminating stage, where you read out or transfer into the required sector. So these are the basic three. Yeah, sorry, it got disconnected again. So these are the three generalized measuring systems. Okay, so then you have in your syllabus what you call as an instrument characteristics. So the first section of your fourth module basically deals with the instrument characteristics, which have the static and dynamic characteristics. So if you go back to our syllabus here, you can see you have the definition, the significance of it, what do you mean by generalized measurement system, and the entire part here deals with the static characteristics as well as the dynamic characteristics. So these static and dynamic characteristics are nothing but associated with the instruments what we are using for measurement. So those instrument characteristics with respect to static and dynamics are dealt here. Okay, so we have to go through what do you mean by static and dynamic characteristics. So every instrument what we use for measurement comprises of two type of characteristics. So one could be the static one and other one could be the dynamic characteristics. So you have to understand what do you mean by static characteristics. So these static characteristics always pertain in a system where quantities have to be measured. So these could be a constant one, or it can vary slowly with respect to the time. Okay, so normally static characteristics of a measuring instruments are those that must be considered when the system or the equipment is used to measure a condition not varying with respect to time. So if you are measuring the data which is not varying with respect to the time, then the characteristics what you obtain is related to the static characteristics of the measurement what you are extracting from a particular instrument. If it starts varying with respect to time, then it comes into the dynamic characteristics. So can you tell some example for static characteristics? So we use the instrument to check how accurate it is, how precise it is. If you measure this values after certain period of time also, the accuracy and the precision of the component what you are measuring remains the same. It doesn't change with respect to time. So these are some of the examples for static characteristics. So the data which varies with time comes for dynamic characteristics. Okay. So now we will focus on what do you mean by dynamic characteristics of a particular instrument. So these characteristics pertain to system where the quantities what you are measuring varies very rapidly with respect to our time. Okay, so this is a difference between our dynamic characteristics and the static characteristics. So what happens here? There are many phenomena which can be conveniently described by static responsible, while on the other hand, the phenomenon which cannot be reported by dynamic response. So what do you mean by it? Basically, dynamic characteristics are the things what you are going to measure which varies with respect to time and with respect to movement, and there are various other things what we'll be dealing in the next slides. So finally what you have to consider is the overall performance of a system many times can be evaluated by semi-qualitative superposition of static and dynamic characteristics. So overall performance, how the system is working on, will be dealt with respect to the both the values of static and dynamic characteristics, because when you measure some unit, a component, the accuracy and the precision part of it will remain the same, but how it is operating with respect to which input, what output variables you are getting, and those output variables always keep on changing with respect to the time and even the external environment, the temperature effect, whatever, depending upon the material what you are using to measure about in a particular device. So both the static and dynamic characteristics plays an vital role. The static characteristics remain same, which are the basic measurements of a particular component like accuracy, precision. But when it comes to the output of any device, the result what you are getting, it mainly depends upon the input variables what you feed. So every input variable will be having some drawbacks, errors or verification, and even when the human being performs, some errors comes into picture, which is also a percentage of error in measurement by for which why we give the unit of tolerance range, everything. So there'll be many much variations in finding out an output of an particular device. So all these variations with respect to time, duration, error, tolerance range will come into the picture of dynamic characteristics. So both plays a vital role in measuring a particular component with respect to a standard, a comparator, or whatever we are using as an reference part. Okay, so if they ask you to explain the static and dynamic characteristics, under static we have many things to explain, under dynamic also we have many things to explain. So first you should know the bifurcation between the static and dynamic characteristics. So now we are dealing with only static characteristics. So under static characteristics, we have various parts what you have to deal. You know what you mean by accuracy already, the precision, the threshold, the calibration, the hysteresis part, repeatability, linearity, all these things remain constant with respect to time period what we are measuring. It won't vary with respect to time. So these are all the statistic characteristics of an measuring instrument. And you know what you mean by accuracy already. We have studied in the first module, even the precision we have studied, the difference between accuracy and the precision also we have studied. Okay, so no need of much in-depth explanation related to it. So basically, accuracy of an instrument indicates how much deviation you are getting from the standard, or how closeness value you are able to get with respect to the standard. So any difference in it will provide you in the percentage of error. It could be a maximum error or an minimum error. So you take the difference between the true value and the actual value. You have performed in various experiments in metrology and measurement lab also, where you determine the percentage of error, the deviation of it, plot the graph with respect to the true value and the actual value. So here you are checking how accurate you are getting the readings by using the measuring instrument, and this value remains same with respect to any time period you measure it, and hence it is one of the characteristics under static. So next is precision. You know what you mean by precision, right? So precision is nothing but it terms how precise the given measuring instrument is. Suppose if you are using an weight measuring instrument, you stand on it and check. Once it shows you are weighing 65 kgs, and if you again check for 3 to 4 times, if it tells the same weight for you, for the body weight, then it shows how precise the given instrument is. It is showing a consistent value, right? But if it shows different weight for a different time when you measure, then it shows it is not a precise instrument. It is not calibrated properly. So calibration plays a vital role in making an instrument very precise. Once the instrument is precise, it always gives you a very accurate value, which is very much nearer to that of the standard component what you are comparing. So everything is based on how well the given instrument is calibrated. So based on calibration, the equipment will provide you, the instrument will provide you a precise and an accurate value which doesn't change with respect to the time in which you are measuring. So after knowing what you mean by precision and accuracy, you should be knowing one term, what we call it as threshold. So what do you mean by threshold? You might have found out the threshold value in many of the laboratories what you have done already. So in general, what do you mean by it? So with respect to any input, the gradually it helps in increasing the output value. So a stage attains in a particular time where for increase in input the output remain constant or consistent without any variation. So that value will be termed to be as your threshold value, where there will be no much more improvement in the output what you are getting for the increase in the input value. So that is termed to be as an threshold value. So what you have to understand, and even this value remains unchanged with respect to time period. So this is also one of the static characteristics in measuring any instrument. So next is calibration. I dealt with calibration also already. So you know that every instrument has to be calibrated before operating or once in a while regularly. Then only it can provide you an accurate and precise value. And you have done the calibration part of various experiments in our laboratory. So once you do the calibration, two more things you have to understand. So what are there? Obtaining an calibration curve and an calibration graph. So what do you mean by calibration graph and curve? So it is a process, for the values of input which are fed, the corresponding output will be measured. So you will plot a graph relating the input and the output data, and the curve what you obtain is called as the calibration curve. It shows how linearly it is varying, or is it consistent, or it is varying exponentially. It shows, so then you can understand how well in human being or an laboratory person is performing the calibration. If he does any error in doing the calibration, then it shows the deviation in the graph. If it is showing a consistent smooth curve, linearly variable, then you can say that the calibration is done regularly and it is of a proper condition. So that is checked in experimental part also. So during the process of any experimentation you do, so you'll be having the input data, the magnitude of the input what you feed, and you get the corresponding output. So this corresponding output will be measured. So you plot and graph output against the input, and that graph is called as a calibration graph, and the way of the curve you get is called as a calibration curve. So you have to explain what do you mean by calibration, how it is related to our accuracy and precision, what do you mean by the calibration curve and the graph when you do an experiment, and how do you fed. You can even draw a graph and show input versus output, and this is the calibration graph and this is the calibration curve what we do. And one more thing what you have to understand is, in calibration always we use the standards. Even in standards there are different types what we categorize: primary standard, secondary standard, tertiary standards. Primary standards will be the most expensive and it will be used once in a while only for inspection purpose. Okay, so others categories we have for laboratory and the workshop sectors also. So that all you have to explain and show how well it could be calibrated and for what process it is needed. So these, until here you were thorough about accuracy, precision and calibration. So I just brushed out. So then it comes hysteresis. Hysteresis is also one of the static characteristics which doesn't change in a measuring instrument. And hysteresis, it depends upon which data you are feeding. It could be an mechanical input, it could be an electrical input, it could be an electronics input, or it could be an dielectric or piezoelectric signal. It could be an magnetic material when you are feeding an magnetic input. So any kind of input, when you feed in data for a particular instrument, means you are loading a data with respect to electrical signal, you might be loading a data with respect to mechanical signal, you might be loading in data with respect to piezoelectric signal. So this will be the initial way. So when you provide an input electrical signal, you will be having the variation, and when you stop the loading of the electrical signal, it comes down, but it doesn't traces the path in which it increased. Okay, and again when you again load the electrical signal, it will trace an other part, but it won't repeat the initial curve which followed. So the area between the loading and the unloading curve is called to be as a hysteresis curve. So you can see here, hysteresis can be a lag between an input and an output that disappears if the input is varied slowly. So here the input will be increased. It could be an electrical input, a mechanical, a magnetical signal, depending upon which type of material you are using. It could be a magnetic material, it could be an ferroelectric material, it could be an dielectric material, it could be an piezoelectric material. So depending upon the material in which you are applying the load in the form of electric signal, your voltage, your flux, your magnetic signal, depending on that you will get the increased rate of that particular signal. So when you drop the signal, it will start coming down. Okay, totally down. And when you again increase the signal in an opposite direction, it traces an path in an opposite way. It won't come back to its original position. So this nature of the curve what you get for loading and unloading of an given input signal is termed to be as our hysteresis curve. In this, you should be knowing some parameters. So this end is called as saturation, this is called as remanence, this is called as coercive field. This is again saturation in the opposite direction. So what do you mean by it? Suppose if this is a magnetic material, you are providing a magnetic signal for a particular magnetic material. So right, it increases and it reaches the saturation level here. So all the magnetic field are aligned in a proper way. So this is the maximum magnetic field what you can induce in a given material. Okay, so once the magnetic field is removed, it starts coming back. Okay, so and here you should know what you mean by remanence. So remanence is the measurement of amount of magnetization the material can retain even after removal of the magnetic signal. So amount of amount of the magnetization retained in the material even after removal of the magnetic signal is called as remanence magnetization. And after that, even since now the magnetic signal is removed, drastically it comes down. Okay, so then you should know what you mean by coercive field or coercivity. So it is a measure of the reverse field needed. So here you have to apply a reverse field of magnetic in order to reach the saturation level in the opposite direction. Every magnet will be having the magnetic field both in the north pole as well as the south pole. So you reverse the magnetic signal in the negative direction. So amount of magnetic field required in order to achieve the saturation